No matter what setting we're talking about, everyone knows that orcs aren't necessarily the smartest bunch. In Warhammer 40k, the greenskins take that stupidity to another level. They aren't the brightest tools in anyone's shed. Apart from the potential numbers of the Tyranids, orcs are the most populous race in 40k too, basically infecting any planet they set foot on with their mushroom-like spores, so that even if you wipe out an entire warband, only more of the mean green fighting machines will be back up and ready to kill you by the time your newborn son is old enough to ride a bike. To those under threat of orc invasions, the Xenos can prove themselves to be an infuriating and destructive race. All they want to do is fight, and in all except a very small amount of cases, they do not give a rat's about what you want. Offer a good fight, and you're seen as a worthy foe worth scrapping over and over and over until one of you is destroyed. Lose the fight against them by being too weak, and not only are you dead, but the orcs will embarrass you by telling everyone you love that you didn't even give them a good scrap. Even with the orcs being so populous and so thirsty for a good bit of fisticuffs, they haven't taken over the galaxy yet. One of the main reasons for this, besides Games Workshop being massive cowards for not giving us the green, dark, far future we deserve, is the orcs' aforementioned lack of basic intelligence. They can't create robot suits that can turn invisible, or gems that bind their souls to armour, or place their one great leader on eternal life support. Orc technology is, by the definition of anyone with eyes, ramshackle. It is bits and pieces of old machinery bashed together in order to create something. Now, that doesn't mean it can't be glorious. Orcs can make some amazing inventions simply with the power of belief, from hulking gargants to rocket packs that only kill their user 50% of the time. The orcs do have some unique ways of getting around and fighting in the 41st millennium. One thing that orcs take particular pride in is their weaponry. While to even a modern man it might look like a rusted old thing, an orc's gun is special to him. Sometimes a good shooter is so special that it's even worth a warboss travelling through time. Today's story is one of love, ladies and gentlemen. Indeed, love between an orc and his gun, particularly orc warboss Griguts. An orc warboss is what happens when one greenskin eats well and exercises for so long that he becomes big enough to take on his boss and take over control of the boys and seize the means of his production. Or sometimes a warboss is just such a sigma male that the other beta boys can't help but follow him in one giant collection of green known as a War. Now, a War is a threatening force for any race in the galaxy, as it rampages from planet to planet looking for anything that dares step in its way. Griguts' War was no different, as he launched his mass collection of EastEnders rejects into the Morlock system towards the end of the 41st millennium. As many Warhammer 40k races do, to travel the depths of the vast galaxy, Griguts sent his forces into the Warp to reach the next big scrap. The Warp is a strange thing though, host to all sorts of demons and horrid creatures that I'd compare to my ex-wife if I had one. Not only does the Warp contain strange beings, but it can cause some weird effects to those travelling through it. Griguts found this out the hard way, as he unknowingly travelled through time while inside the Imperium. When emerging on the other side of the Warp, the big green fella found that his entire War and himself had appeared just before he had initially set into the Warp. A strange concept, I suppose, isn't it? For the Brits out there, I guess I can compare it to the Concorde plane, which was a thing in the 90s that could have you arrive in New York technically before you'd set up from London due to the difference in time zones. For those of you who have no idea what I'm on about there, I'm sorry to have wasted your time. Let's move swiftly on after that. Griguts was not only a guy who loved scrapping, shooting and Kylie Minogue, he also had a great fondness for loot. Now, every orc and true man loves a good bit of booty every now and again, but Griguts was really, really into his treasures. Some would go so far as to call him a kleptomaniac. Namely me. I would call him that. Above all though, his most prized possession was his treasured gun. Now, it's not particularly stated what this gun is in the lore, or what it looks like, or what it was called, but I imagine it was kind of like one of those Nerf guns that shoots like 800 darts in a round. And that with all the creativity Griguts was known for, he likely named it Shooter. Griguts loved this gun so much that he saw an opportunity following his time travel experience. Once he realised what it is that he'd actually done, the warboss hunted down and killed the previous version of himself so that he could do a duplication glitch on his gun. This guy risked the entire space-time continuum, also he could have a spare version of his best gun where it needed to be replaced. Dare I say, based. However, unfortunately for our boy, he was never able to live out his dream of conquering the galaxy, as due to him killing himself, or the past version of himself, the War following both past and present Griguts got so confused that everyone just got bored and went home. So yeah, that's the story of Griggett. He had everything. A huge host of orcs at his back, his favourite gun, and probably lots of other things too. And then he threw it all away for another gun. Greed is the folly of all species in Warhammer, it seems, and as we look at the 40k version of the Midas story from Greek myth, well, except for the fact that unlike Midas, who regretted his greed greatly, I bet Griggett is somewhere out there in the Imperium having a blast with 2 versions of his favourite gun. Orcs are simple creatures after all, and they're impressed by brilliantly simple things. There's that quote of the Imperium explorer who believes that orcs are the real winners already in the galaxy, because all they want to do is fight, and they've got endless amount of species to fight. Having 2 guns to Griggett will bring him enough endorphins for 1,000 lifetimes, even if he did have to break the laws of time travel for it. If you've got any other wacky Warhammer stories you want me to dive into, do let me know. Otherwise, you know the drill, my silly little peons, hit the buttons, all the good ones, and then maybe you'll have the privilege of seeing me again soon. Bye bye.